Thanks for having me. Let me share my screen real quick. Cool. You can see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So I'm Niles, co-founder CEO of Nestment, where we're making home ownership possible. Cross out the IM for Gen Z and millennials through house hacking and co-buying. We all see this in the headlines all the time, but home ownership is a generational problem and a generational opportunity. Just last month, the US hit its lowest first-time home ownership rate, 24%. Average age of a first-time home buyer was 38. That was 31 in 2014 and below 30 before that. Just that missing historical average to the current is over $300 billion, 600,000 annual transactions. That's three times the size of what Compass does, publicly traded brokerage. With over 50 million millennials and Gen Z priced out, we're seeing these creative solutions like house hacking going from trend to movement. That's because it still really, really matters. It's a higher priority than marriage, kids, and career. Almost 60% of Gen Z believe this is how they're going to own, and 85% of the 114 million renters would like to be able to buy. I'm a OG house hacker, I guess. I grew up here in the Bay Area. My father passed when I was young. My mom was an immigrant widowed with two boys, no job at the time. So at 13, we were fortunate that we had a home. At 13, I learned how to refinance a home, and we went on Craigslist and we rented out our rooms to international grad students. So outside of sharing bathrooms, it was actually kind of fun to grow up in that environment. Went to Harvard for undergrad, came back to the Bay Area. First startup was sold and was acquired by a company that went on NASDAQ. And my cousins in Oakland were making fun of me that I was the reason they couldn't afford Oakland. So I'm in my 20s, decided to buy a triplex and say, hey, I'll put down the capital. You guys can buy equity over time. One of the most very interesting experience, but also really meaningful because 10 years later, we had lived there for a while. Then it became a cash generating building. And then I was able to refinance in early 22 before rates went up and gave everyone a sizable check that went to their home. So we had created generational wealth in 10 years. I had my second startup, New York Times funded sustainable SaaS company in the B2B space. I had colleagues who were looking to do something similar because they were in high cost environments. They actually brought the name Nestment to me and said, can we take our tools and create a landing page? They did it. Flighted an Instagram ad and LinkedIn campaign. Next thing we knew, all these people signed up for a product that didn't exist. Those colleagues became co-founders and actually bought their first homes through Nestment. So what do? We've started by productizing three house hacking strategies. The first is primary multifamily. This is owner occupied 2 to 4 units. Recently, Fannie Mae came out with a program that we worked with them on, 5% down. You can use the rental income to increase your loan amount. Rent vesting. So for those in high cost areas, rather than being locked out of the appreciation of home ownership, invest somewhere else while you're waiting to be able to afford your primary home. Any of these can be done individually or as couples, but also we specialize in co-buying. Average group size is around 2.6. So it's not a huge amount of people, but it makes a huge difference, usually 2 to 4 folks. Examples, Weldon and John, two engineers who spent over 15 years saving up for single family homes for them and their wives, still couldn't make it happen, but they were able to use that program, get a quadplex, live in 2 units with their wives and rent out 2 units. Selena and Wade, rent investors, professionals in Brooklyn who couldn't afford Brooklyn and were tired of waiting. So they bought in Hudson Valley first, allowing them to gain equity and then offset expenses through Airbnb. Emily and Kim, will come back to them later, but bought a single family home together. A lot of roommates who are like, we already live together. Why don't we just own instead of rent? What Nestman does is we eliminate the complexity and we configure a buying path. So we set up goal alignment, financials and ROI, agreements, competitive lending, and aligned agents. So as a quick example, we go back to Emily and Kim. They have all of their listings. I think we're the first group to actually have stuff like a multi-unit or house hacking calculator. It pulls in data, pulls in expensive data on forward-looking appreciation and things like that from CoreLogic, gives a visual roadmap. You get education along the way, as well as a human coordinator to help you through this really big purchase. Last few things I'd mention is that we make our money off of the ecosystem. So we give access for free. We do a commission split with our realtors who actually love us because it gives the buying agent a lot of clout, and it also has a high conversion rate by the time it gets to them. We do MSAs with lenders, and we are building out our Nestment hub for management and exit liquidity. We make over 11,000 per transaction at 80% margin. So we actually, our ecosystem does a lot of the work. Our platform does the work on our end. And we've increased throughput without additional burn. So what took 12 hours has gotten down to about, I wouldn't say one yet, but closer to two at this point. So this year, we've become the definitive leader of this movement. So we've been out for now a little over a year when we got our license. So over 100 million in transaction volume, 30% growth month over month. But we're most proud of the fact that we're really making a dent for first-time home buyers, and we want to be able to scale that. And in communities of color and first-gen immigrant communities, been on CBS Mornings, a number of different media publishing due to this interest. It's real estate, so it's a little lumpy, but it's growing, grew 5 out of 6 quarters, but each quarter we grew our take rate as well. And so we'll be at about somewhere around 1.4 to 1.5 on run rate in our first kind of full year. That's part of the larger narrative arc. So this year has been about building the movement, having about 100 case studies that represent millions of buyers, and we're planning to scale that movement over the next year. We launched the first ever home buying accelerator as part of that process, where we took from one group to 100 groups at a time, fully sponsored and paid for as well. There are competitors in the space. I would say we're pretty unique. There were some early entrants that the timing wasn't right. There are the Picassos of the world, but those are for older, wealthier customers. It's kind of like second home timeshares. And then there's great investment vehicles like Arrived and Fractional, where they have larger syndicates who are just looking at investment properties. Our focus is really groups of 2 to 4, ideally spending some time at the property as well. Great team, lots of great investors. I've worked with 3 of our co-founders, and then one of our first investors, Jonathan Chu, who helped build Flipagram, which became merged with Musical.ly to become TikTok, and also built Blockfolio and sold that to FTX. He's now our head of product. And then we have some awesome advisors. We raised this round because we wanted to give our customers and partners a chance to invest before the institutional rounds get more expensive. And so we're excited to partner with WeFunder and make that accessible to all of you as well, since we're doing this. And we can talk more later. There's lots of other things I'm sure people have questions about.
Amazing. I guess we have about 10 minutes for questions. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, we'll start the timer. Feel free to take it
How
away.
long was that, Katie? I'm just curious, just for my own edification.
Nick, can you tell us based on what you got over there?
Yep, that was about 6 or like
Okay.
550-ish.
Sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
All right.
Great pitch. Actually, I think this is a very compelling idea, and you clearly have all the creds and very impressive team that you've assembled. Really love a lot of things about this. I've been looking at this space for quite a while because I am really interested in investing in something in this space. I have looked at, other competitors, a couple that you've cited and others that you didn't, but didn't quite get there for a whole variety of reasons. One of the things that I really like about this idea is like you were emphasizing this less of a total investment and more of a, can I actually own this place to live kind of angle. It has more of that angle. And I think that's actually a much better angle to compete on than as a pure investment where you're actually competing then against all kinds of other investments, including the stock market, right? It's like where you can put your money. So I love that. Some nuanced questions. First, it sounds like actually your groups are able to get debt. So one of the things that I think has been challenging about other companies doing a similar thing as you that I've seen before is that it's actually really hard for groups of people to get debt. How does this work with your model?
Yeah.
And who has to be underwritten here? Like everybody in the party or one person? And who is the,
So to your point, I'd say 2 things. One, first-time home ownership is huge, right? And that's really what we're solving for, right? Are different ways to buy. And that's the hair on fire problem in my mind. But from a debt perspective, and that's a great question. What's great is that you can actually have, and even loan officers don't always know this because actually the structures weren't set up for this. You can have up to 4 people, 4 couples, or 4 families even be on a qualified mortgage together, right, as co-borrowers. Now, one of the great things is we started at a time where the real estate market was so bad that we actually got national lenders to make sure their back-end operations could take that amount of people. So we also got our groups or our lenders to agree to, if we wanted, allow us to transfer title into an LLC, say if there were more than 4 people too. and that would without a due sale on clause. So due sale on clause is once the title transfers, it could trigger an automatic sale at that point, right? So we also have a whole set of lenders that will allow for an LLC transfer. And then I think one of the exciting things is we're working closely with DC and the GSEs like Freddie and Fannie. So we're going to be piloting with Freddie hopefully soon here is a blended credit model. So for instance, I bought one place with two cousins. Two of us have great credit, one doesn't. He's in a good place now, but that's why we were bringing him along. They took his credit and used it across all three of us, right? So now we're actually working on a blended credit model that will hopefully release with Freddie and Flagstar. And so what we're trying to build is not, it's really looking at what are the things that if you just tweak it now, you can make this as mainstream as possible. And it's just operational and almost like we're an orchestration layer across. And then there's some more structural things that we're actively working on. But debt has not been an issue for us.
And then I guess a follow-up question is, if debt is not an issue for your groups, like what happens when something goes wrong? Like, what is the dynamics of the groups, or like, do they handle it themselves, or do you step in and say, well, actually, this person owes this much or whatever?
Yeah. Great question. So currently, we spent a lot of money and a lot of time putting together as many templates as possible. So essentially creating a document builder. When I did my first co-buying agreement, I spent over $10,000 and I was like, this is just a decision tree, right? Like we can actually work this out. So everyone has this agreement in place. There's things like time-bounded considerations for exiting. There's all of these different elements within there. Now, we let people deal with that themselves because our first phase has been about intelligent transaction. But the whole kind of hub that we're building is both marketplace as well as taking those rules and writing those rules into the system, right? So you start to be able to have things like equity splits. Like let's take the roof caves in, for example. Not everyone can afford to replace it, right? But you could actually change your equity splits so that it allows for people to buy and it allows a fluidity around that. So we're really excited. I mean, those are all opportunities because if you ask people, you could either have the choice to rent your whole life or to buy with somebody. They choose buying with somebody.
Mm-hmm. And like, where do you fit into the stack? It sounds like you make money on commissions on this. So are you showing houses to your potential
No, see,
customers?
the great thing that happens is so we're again kind of like that orchestration layer, but we have licenses across the way. In fact, we never really want to be the customer facing broker or lender because ultimately what I believe is the biggest potential is to be the customer advocate, right? So we have individuals and couples coming to us now because first time home buying is just so overwhelming and everyone's a point solution. But what we do is we have referral licenses across the board. So our thing is really getting people in, making sure they're aligned, they have the education that they need through the system, they get a sense of the type of property they're buying. So actually agents and large brokerages love us because our close rate is over 40% of every lead we bring into them closes. And our average transaction size is 1.12 million. And that's largely because agents get to focus on doing what they love best, which is here's the exact property you were looking for or something like the properties that you have on your dashboard. And we're going to help you negotiate and close. Lenders, they're already pre-approved by the time they get to the agent. Before they get to the lender, they're already aligned. And if they're not, and they've fallen out of the process, then they're not qualified.
Mm-hmm. And so in terms of like the customer acquisition funnel, then like how do you get these customers? Like where are they coming from?
Yeah, so largely it's actually all been through partnerships. One of the things that I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier was this notion of Nestgen, which we released, which was a way for us. We actually just used our partners and we got all of these qualified applicants. We did our first beta group was with Built Rewards for people that are familiar with Built. They help you pay your rent and get points. We're running one for couples now, unmarried couples with a company called Tandem. We have 400,000 subscribers. We're doing multi-generational with AARP. I just came from Scottsdale where I got to chat with the Major League Soccer and Major League Baseball. I can't tell you how many San Jose Earthquake players can't afford San Jose, right? So we're being brought in to essentially we're automating some of the curriculum acts, all these things. So it's been mostly organic at this point. Like just, 10,000 transactions makes us $1 billion company, which is the amazing part, right? So like it doesn't take a lot to get there.
Yeah. And last question for now, although I think for the audience, I would have many others, but I think, the thing about this is for businesses, it's a lot easier to build on retention. Like if you have some level of recurring revenue, I guess my question here is like, which of these revenue streams, if any, have any level of retention, or are you constantly requiring people to come to you for new home buys?
Yeah, that's a great question and something we always, because my last company was a B2B SaaS company. I love recurring revenue. I think there's a few different opportunities for folks. I think one is it's such high transaction margins on that. Sorry, this last slide. But we actually think what we're helping people with on the management side, there's a lot of opportunity there, right? So there's everything from CPA support to agent management to just being able to look and understanding. If I ask anyone on this call, do they know when exactly they'd be able to take equity out or liquidity out of their home? You should actually know the exact month based on your mortgage and based on forward-looking projections. Those are all things we can do by helping manage. And then there's being there for the exit, right? So as you start to think about the exit opportunities, I do still think purchase and exit, you'll still see these really big chunks, and there's such a large market that I don't see if we're able to crack what we're trying to do and continue to build, you'll kind of see that happening. But I think underneath it all, you can start to build a lot of management tools.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Niles. I would love to learn more offline.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Would love to get all of your insights from all of the other things you've seen in the space. So thanks everybody for the time here.
Thank you, Niles. Thank you, Elizabeth. That was great. I actually did want to squeeze in one more investor question just because they did, submit it in the chat. The question was from Alan's asking, does Nestment provide ongoing financial/tax information calculations to the co-buyers once they own?
Yeah, so great question. So we do connect people to CPAs, but we're actually building that now. We've been basically taking every single major question, or that we've been ranking questions from all of our customers and all of our people in the platform. And so you'll see a whole set of tools that will just come out that are helping answer, should I buy, when should I buy, like all of those things. I think we're going to compete with the rent versus buy calculator on New York Times. What are the tax implications, et cetera. So
Awesome.
cool.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And to everyone else, if you have any other questions, feel free to submit that through the Ask a Question feature on Nestman's campaign page. I'm sure Niles will be more than happy to answer that. But
Love it. Thank you. This is so cool. We're all about building wealth and building community. So I'm so happy to do a community round. Thank you, everyone.